What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Currently reporting from the only shady area in the Hustler Casino parking lot. As you can probably guess, the reason I'm here is to play some poker, but more specifically to play some poker on live stream. As the majority of you guys probably already know, they made a new live stream here, and I got an invitation to play some 5-5-10, which I'm very excited about. I'm going to be trying to get on this live stream more regularly, specifically their 10-20, which plays every Thursday, but for now I'm going to be playing this game, and of course I'm going to bring you guys inside for the ride and include all the interesting hands in this particular vlog. Before we get in there, however, there's quite a few things to go over in regards to my upcoming September/October plans, because there's a lot going on and I figured you guys might want to be in the loop. So to start things off, today is September 1st. I'm going to be playing some 5-5-10 here, like I said. Tomorrow, September 2nd, I'm going to be playing some 10-20 at Commerce. By the time you guys see this video, that date will already have passed. But the reason it's important to you guys, maybe, is because that's going to be the next vlog. Moving along, September 6th to the 8th, I'm going to be in Las Vegas with Megan. Not really sure if I'm going to be playing much poker, but if I do, it'll be a 5-10 session at the Aria. And if I do play, it'll be on this date at this time right here. Moving along, in September 15th through the 18th, I'm going to be back here with none other than Ethan from Rampage Poker. Excuse the sirens in the background, but it just adds to the LA theme, if you guys can hear those. Anyway, the first 2 days, we're going to be playing 10-20 on live stream. The second 2 days, we're going to be having a meetup game right here. The first of which is a 2-3 meetup game, as far as I know. The second day is a 5-5 meetup game. I think there's already a list that you guys can call into and get on the wait list for. So if you guys want to do that, feel free to give them a call and just ask for the meetup game with Rampage Poker and Mariano. Moving along, September 25th, I'm going to be playing back at the Lodge, and I'm flying out there specifically for their 25-50 uncapped, no limit live stream game. A game that I'm very excited about, also a little bit nervous because it's obviously the biggest game I've ever played. And what else? Oh yeah, that brings me to October, which is going to include the first ever World Series of Poker that I actually participate in. Quite a lot of stuff going on for myself and obviously for this channel as well. So if you guys are looking forward to any of that, feel free to subscribe. Anyway, enough of the talk. I'm probably boring you guys already like I'm boring myself. So let's go play some cards. All right, guys, here we go. Playing some 5-5-10. That's right, 3 blinds in this game. The max buy-in is 3,000, so that's what I sat down with. And we're gonna waste no time getting involved, because in the first shuffle of the night, I looked down at Jack 10 in late position. Not the best hand in the world, but good enough to open for $30. That's what I do, and the 2 players in the middle and big blind make the call. So 3 ways to a flop, which is a pretty good one for Jack 10, but when the first player bets 40 and the player behind him calls, I decided to just flat call in position and see what they want to do on the turn. Turn card is the 10 of spades, improving us to 3 of a kind, which is great. However, when the first player continues betting, I don't see much point in raising, so I make the call again and we go off to a river, heads up. River card is a king, but that doesn't stop my opponent from betting yet again. And even though my hand is quite strong, I don't really see much point in raising. Feels like a situation where we are only really getting called by full houses and folding out all worse hands. So I toss in one final call and get shown Queen Deuce. Off to a decent start. In the next hand, we see a limp from early position before the player on his left makes it $55. Folds to me in late position, and I look down at Ace 5 of clubs. Seems like a good raising candidate to me, so I make it 165, and only the initial raiser makes the call. Flop comes down Queen 8-7 with 2 clubs. He checks it over to me, and I would pretty much bet all my hands for a small size here. The nut flush draw is no exception. My opponent makes the call, so hoping for a good turn card, which indeed does come. It's the 6 of clubs. Not only is this a great card because we improve to the nuts, of course, but it also brings in 10-9, which is the most obvious straight draw on the flop. Also, if he's got a queen or a set, maybe two pair, I expect him to call at least one more bet. So this time when he checks, I size up a bit, trying to set up an all-in on the river. Once again, Nate makes the call, so a big pot brewing here as we see the queen of diamonds on the river. Not the best card, as now we could be losing to some full houses, but when he checks it over to me, there's no way I'm checking back a hand this strong. Plus, we could still get some value from hands that we're still beating, which there's still quite a few of. So I jam all in, hoping to get called, but just not snap called. After thinking it over for a long while, Nate does eventually make the call, and we take down a very large pot here early in the session. Credit to him for thinking about folding, but honestly it just seems like a cooler and luckily one that we were on the right side of. Moving along, in this next one, the straddle is on, and we see a middle position open to $80. I'm next to act with King 9 of spades. This hand feels a little too weak to flat call here, so I prefer either just folding it or sometimes raising. This time I raise it up and only the initial raiser makes the call, so heads up in position to a flop of King, Queen, Jack. Rocky checks it over to me, and on this board I think I'm happy to pot control with a weak top pair, and unfortunately we see an ace on the turn. Once again he checks, and now that we no longer have top pair and any 10 makes a straight, I simply check it again, hoping to get to showdown. Unfortunately, my opponent disagrees, and after seeing a brick on the river, bets out $110. A very small bet relative to the size of the pot, which puts me in a tough situation. On one hand, we only have to call correctly like 20% of the time to make our hand profitable. On the other hand, though, he's probably bluffing about 0% of the time for this size. So I pretty much decide right away I'm going to fold, but then I wonder if maybe raising could be a good idea to get him off a hand like two pairs or whatever. But I quickly dismiss that idea and end up just letting it go. Looking back at the cards, who knows, maybe that would have worked, but at the same time, he easily could have had a 10 himself. So maybe not the best idea. The very next shuffle, the straddle is on again, and there's a limp on my right. This time I look down at 9-8 of hearts and make it $70 before getting called by the button and Rocky, who limped in originally. So 3 ways to a very attractive flop of ace-10-9 with 2 hearts. So we've got a pair and a flush draw, but when Rocky checks it, I think you could go either way here, actually. This time I decide to check, and the button checks behind. Turn card is a magical one. It's the Jack of Hearts, improving us to a flush, and hopefully giving one of these guys at least a straight or 2 pair, maybe even a set, who knows. Action's on me again, and now I bet for some value. However, now the button decides to raise it all the way up to $500. Rocky makes the fold, and action is back on me. This seems like a strange play to me because I would imagine that all hands worse than a flush would just call in position here. So I'm actually not loving it, but definitely not going to fold either. So I just make the call, and we go to a river card, which doesn't improve things as it pairs the board. So now if my opponent was for some reason raising a set or 2 pair on the turn, we're now losing to full houses. So once again, I check it, and this time my opponent fires again for $575. Given the way he's played the hand and his bet sizing on the river here, I almost immediately dismiss the possibility of him having a bluff, or at least it feels extremely unlikely. So now it just becomes a question of, well, which value hands do we beat? And the only ones I can think of are smaller flushes and maybe King Queen. But that just seems like an overplay to me with a straight on this board. However, we are getting a really good price, and I've never played with this player before. So I decide, if he's got a better hand, here's my money. And as it turns out, he did have one of those few value hands that we beat, King Queen. Didn't really expect to see that, but hey, happy to win it. As if things weren't going well enough already, later on we see another open from early position before looking down at the dream. Aces on the button. Obviously going for the raise here. Thank God it's a straddled pot, by the way. If you don't like to straddle, please unsubscribe. Only the initial raiser makes the call, so it's myself and Nate off to another post-flop battle. The board comes out a little dicey. It's queen high with 3 diamonds. Still, our hand is too strong to check back here, so I continue with a small bet once he checks it over to me, and he makes the call. Turn card isn't exactly a brick, but when he checks it to me for a second time, I think I want to keep betting for value/protection. So that's what I do. Looking back, however, I'm pretty sure I should have checked back here for a few different reasons, but either way, Nate ends up folding ace-king with the ace of diamonds, so we take another one down. About an hour later, the straddle is on yet again, and there's a limper in early position. I look down at 9-7 of hearts this time, and even though it's a little bit wide, I think it's still fine to raise this one in position, so I make it 70. And now the player on my left, Mr. Fat Duck here, makes it 225. So I'm pretty much done with the hand at this point, until there's a cold call from the third blind, and the early position limper calls as well. Closing the action, getting such a good price, okay, time to gamble, I guess. Flop comes down 10 high with 2 hearts. Not a bad flop for our hand, but sketchy situation with so many people in this re-raised pot. Action checks to the pre-flop aggressor, and he decides to check it back. So still 4 of us to a turn, which is the jack of clubs, improving us to a straight draw in addition to our flush draw. So when the third blind leads for half pot and action folds to me, I'm definitely not going anywhere. It's just a question of continuing through a raise or a call. Given that this player just bet into 3 opponents, it feels like he's got a pretty strong hand. So I decided to just call in position and either look for some improvement on the river or maybe find some cards to bluff on. Fat Duck gets out of the way, so heads up to see one last card. Sadly, we find no help upon seeing the 10 of clubs. This time Darren decides to check it, and now we have a question of whether or not we want to bluff. After thinking it over for some time, I felt that this particular river card is not one that I'm willing to fire on. River board pairs are usually really tricky spots to bluff on, so unfortunately this time I decide to just surrender and live to fight another hand. Not something I do very often, but I think it's important to always keep decisions flexible based on the run out. In the next hand there's 3 limpers before I check the straddle with 6-5 of hearts. We find middle pair on 9-5-3. Action checks to the player last to act, who quickly bets $80. The other 2 players fold, and when it's back on me, even though it's a pretty big bet, I feel like Cowboy John could easily be stabbing with a lot of hands, so I make the call with middle pair and also a backdoor flush draw. Turn is a great one. It's the 5 of clubs, which should definitely give us the best hand if we didn't have it already. And it's also a good spot to lead, I think, because he shouldn't really ever have a 5 after betting the flop, but I certainly could have one after checking and then calling a bet. So I lead here for 90, and John makes the call. River card is pretty lame though. It's another 9, making our hand a lot less impressive. However, after he called my flop bet, I feel like he could still have some worse hands still, like small pocket pairs or maybe some missed draws. I don't really think missed draws are going to bluff on this exact run out, so I decided to just bet small and target some small pairs, obviously with the intention of folding if we were to face a raise. He ends up just calling, and we chop against Queen 5. So what looked like a bad river card was actually a bailout. The run good continues, I guess. Later on, there's a few limpers before the button raises to 90. I'm in the big blind this time, looking down at Ace-Jack, a hand that rates to be the best hand versus all sorts of stuff that the button could be raising here, so I kick it up to $360, and only the initial raiser on the button makes the call. Flop comes down King 8-3 Rainbow, about as good as we could hope for without actually flopping something. We could certainly use this board to apply some pressure against middling pocket pairs, and even hands like King-Jack or King-Queen. So I start with a small bet, and he makes the call. Turn is an offsuit 5, and I see no reason not to follow the plan still. So this time I size up to $900, and he lets it go. Turns out Ace-Jack was the best hand anyway, but I suspect it would have worked against many better hands. The last hand of the night is for sure the most interesting in my opinion, so here we go. Straddle is on in this one, and it gets to me on the button with Ace-Queen. I raise it up to 50 and get called by the big blind, the third blind, and the straddler. 4 ways to a good-looking flop of Queen 10-5 with 2 spades. Action checks to me, and with top pair on a draw-heavy board, I size up to around 2/3 pot, at which point the big blind puts in a check raise. The old check and raise. The other two players fold, and already this is somewhat a sketchy situation, but having such a strong hand, I'm not folding just yet. So I make the call, and we see a pretty nice turn card in the 5 of diamonds. One of the hands I was mildly concerned with on the flop was pocket 5s, and now that seems extremely unlikely. So when he fires another bet, I see no reason to do anything but call and play a river. River comes out about as innocent as they get, but my opponent is still not done betting. This time, however, he bets pretty small, only about 25% of the pot. I think the standard play here is to just call and get to showdown, but at this point my wheels start turning about potentially putting in a raise. At first glance, it seems way too thin since we would pretty much only be targeting king-queen exactly, but I also felt like that's most likely what he has here, since queen 10 and pocket 10s would probably bet much bigger. Now, would he even call a raise with king-queen? Well, I think so, since the spades missed, he could put me on a missed flush draw, or maybe ace-king, which is 2 overcards and a straight draw, who knows. So, after thinking it over for a bit, I know it's an ambitious play, but I can't help myself. So I decided to go for it, knowing full well that this could easily backfire.
But I think he's understanding his opponent, and I think Antonius' small sizing induced this. And now Antonius is in a tough time, because now he's got to figure out, did I induce this with my small bet sizing, or does the guy actually have me beat?
I'm selfish, to be honest.
And a lot of draw. I mean, Jack 9 missed, King Jack missed, Spades missed, and there's the payoff.
I don't want to be 50, Will. I'm that teenager.
That's a great race from Mariano.
Well done,
That is
Mariano.
a fantastic race.
He's shown some great chops here. And he is our biggest winner tonight.
Always a step ahead.
At the
Son
point.
of a bitch.
Well, it doesn't happen too often, but that hand went exactly the way I'd hoped, and it was a perfect note to end the session on. Shortly after, the stream ended, and it was time to head to the cashier. So I hope you guys enjoyed the hands. Well, as you guys saw, that went pretty damn well. It felt like I won almost every hand that I entered, except maybe 1 or 2. And, you know, as you guys can guess, that's usually going to come out to a good result. And today was no exception. I was in for 3,000 and out for, I actually have no idea. I haven't counted these chips right here, but I believe I won around maybe 4,000 or so. Considering that it was a 5-5-10 game, very good result, one that I'm very satisfied with. I'll be back again with Rampage Poker in a few weeks. Make sure you guys come out for those meetup games if you want. And I look forward to meeting at least a few of you guys right back here in some 2-3 and 5-5 games. All right, that's a wrap. I'm gonna head to the hotel, get some sleep, and see you guys in the next vlog. Until then, good luck at the tables. Peace.